The One and Only Ivan is the latest exclusive film to hit the Disney Plus streaming service. It stars the voice talents of Sam Rockwell, Danny DeVito, Angelina Jolie, Helen Mirren, Philippa Sue and Chaka Khan, and Bryan Cranston in a live-action role. It's based on the novel by Katherine Applegate and directed by Thea Sharrock. Before we get into this, don't forget to hit that like button. It does wonders in getting my content out there. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to keep up to date with all my content going forward. I'd like to hear from you also. What are your thoughts on One and Only Ivan? Weigh in with those down in the comments below. One and Only Ivan tells the fantasized true story of Ivan, a silverback gorilla held captive in a shopping mall for almost 30 years. Forced to perform circus acts every day, Ivan and his other animal pals dream of one day escaping for a life in the wild. One and Only Ivan joins Artemis Fowl, Hamilton and next month's Mulan as the latest casualty of Disney's 2020 theatrical release schedule. That's right, this movie was actually supposed to open in cinemas last week, but because of the whole thing that's going on in the world at the moment, it was taken from the schedule and dumped straight on Disney+. Now, it's been pretty obvious so far why some of these movies have been relegated to the streaming service. Of course, Artemis Fowl was just absolute hot trash. Terrible, terrible movie. This is a movie that is actually very, very good. It's a movie that I really enjoyed. And I feel like it's something that Disney just kind of realized, we're not going to make a lot of money on this film. It's probably going to cost us too much to keep putting the release date back, putting it back. Let's just put it on Disney Plus, give some people some enjoyable entertainment to watch, a decent movie to watch for free, as long as you've paid your Disney Plus streaming subscription. I've been looking forward to seeing One and Only Ivan since I first heard it announced on Disney's release schedule. This just sounded like a really charming, whimsical Disney feature of old, the kinds that I used to get all the time in the 90s when I was growing up, the movies that we really don't get to see too much of anymore. I mean, Disney are all in on their live-action remakes, their big blockbuster films like the Marvel movies and the Star Wars movies, their big animated films, all this kind of stuff. We don't get too many of these live-action originals anymore. I mean, over the last few years, maybe they released one here or there. The few that come to mind, McFarland USA, Queen of Katwe, $1 Million Arm, The Finest Hours, a few that have just come out over the last few years. All really, really great movies, but movies that just simply don't draw an audience to go and see on the big screen, but movies that really don't make big bucks at the box office. So it does make sense that Disney have decided to put this one on Disney Plus. So don't go into this thinking, okay, this is going to be another Artemis Fowl, this is another movie that's just getting thrown on the streaming service because it's absolutely terrible. This is a really, really good movie. Out of all the live-action originals that I just kind of rattled off, I would have to say that One and Only Ivan is probably the best out of the lot. This is a really, really beautiful movie, and I kind of feel like it is a little bit disappointing that it didn't get its time to shine on the big screen, because this is a really cinematic feeling film. But that said, I have said this in a number of my reviews before, I feel like this movie will get more eyes, it will be viewed by a wider audience, but it's not going to get its time on that big format that it really deserves as well. This, as I said, is a really cinematic feeling movie. It's got a fantastic cast, a really huge cast of really great performers. They all deliver some really fantastic voice performances in here. Sam Rockwell and Danny DeVito particularly are really, really great in here. And of course, Bryan Cranston is great as always, as I said at the top. Even though he is playing a character that has a bit of internal conflict and the audience is really conflicted as to whether he's a good guy or a bad guy, he kind of runs this circus, he owns all these animals, but you can tell he is a good guy at heart, and Bryan Cranston delivers this really fantastically layered performance. The animal characters in this movie are really incredible as well. The CGI animation on them is absolutely tremendous. I mean, think of the kind of animation that we got in The Lion King, but unlike The Lion King, these characters have some real expressiveness, some real emotion, and you can really connect with them like human characters, because we have been done over in the past by movies where, you know, you've got live action people and then a CGI animal, and the CGI is just a little bit off on the animals, or the animals just aren't emotive enough to get that kind of connection with. This, I feel like, is probably, I feel like it does it probably better than almost any movie that has been out there so far. And if you kind of maybe compare it to something else, it would be Call of the Wild that we got earlier in the year, where you did have the live action characters interacting with the CGI dogs. I feel like in that movie, those characters did feel a little bit cartoony in some aspects. It worked for me, that movie really worked for me, but I feel like One and Only Ivan really skirts that difference between the cartoony characters and a more realistic character that does have some real emotion embedded in it. So if you were one that did take issue to Call of the Wild, I feel like you will actually have a better time with this movie. I feel like you'll be more receptive to the characters in this one. This movie has a terrific story, it's heartwarming, it's heartbreaking, it's got lots of great messages about hope and humanity and conservation, everything that you want from one of these Disney movies, and it absolutely boggles my mind that it's not just based on a novel, but based on a true story. I think it's absolutely crazy that things like this actually happen. It's absolutely nuts. But because it is based on a novel, it is highly fictionalized, and I feel like if I do have any issues with the movie, it's that narratively, it feels maybe a little bit thin. It has this basic seed of an idea, which is these animals that want to escape captivity. But then in doing so, the movie, I feel like, doesn't really introduce too many threats, too much risk. The movie doesn't really have a villain. Again, you've got Bryan Cranston's character. He's got a conflict in himself where he's a really good guy, but then he owns these animals and is exploiting them for money, and he's feeling conflicted in himself. The audience feels really conflicted about the character too, but he's not like a clear-cut villain. And I feel like even any of the human characters in this movie are clear-cut villains, which means there is none of that kind of those high stakes, that danger that a movie like this maybe should have. But again, I'm just really clutching at straws here, just trying to find some kind of issue to deliver a balanced review. I thought it's a really great movie. I really enjoyed this across the board. I really can't fault it at all. At that, I am really happy to be giving One and Only Ivan a 4 out of 5. One and Only Ivan is a tremendously charming and cinematic film with great characters, wonderful performers, and a touching feel-good story that is marks above pretty much any movie Disney has relegated to the streamer so far. All that said, if you're one of those audience members who have taken maybe a little bit of issue with Disney not releasing too many live-action originals over the last few years, you really need to get behind the Disney Plus streaming service. You need to get behind this movie because it is really wonderful and it deserves your support. Again, disappointing it didn't get to be seen on the big screen because it is such a cinematic feeling adventure, but I feel like it's going to be great. It's going to get so many eyes, such a wide, vast audience. And I feel like if these Disney Plus exclusive movies in general get really good reception going forward, it's going to be more incentive for Disney to pump more money into this kind of content. It's going to be a win-win for absolutely everybody. But at that, I'm going to hand it over to you out there. I want to know what are your thoughts going into One and Only Ivan. If you've seen the movie, what were your thoughts of it? Fire with all of those down in the comments below, and until next time, take it easy. I'll see you on the next one. If this is your first time viewing one of my videos and you'd like to see more like it in the future, then please don't forget to hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen, as well as that like button down below for that little extra support. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic day.